The research lab of Sector 9 was always quiet at this hour. The bright white lights hummed softly above rows of metal tables and sealed glass chambers. Alien scientists walked slowly between machines, checking data screens and whispering in their strange voices. To them, this was just another shift, another day studying new life forms from distant planets. They felt safe here. Their scanners were perfect. Their technology never failed. Inside one of the holding rooms, a new creature had just arrived from Earth. The alien transport unit rolled it inside a metal cage, still shaking from the rough trip. The creature was small, black and white, with sharp eyes and messy fur. None of the aliens cared much. It looked harmless. It looked weak. They laughed softly and tapped their scanners. The scanner flashed green and wrote two simple words, "No threat." One alien chuckled and shook his head. Another simple Earth animal. They always look scary but are nothing special. A human scientist, Dr. Mason, stood nearby and looked at the creature with a nervous face. He had worked with animals before. He knew this one. "I don't think you should treat that animal lightly," he said quietly. "This is a honey badger. They don't behave like other creatures." The aliens ignored him. One of them waved a hand. "We know our scanners. If the scanner says no threat, then there is no threat." The honey badger stared at them through the bars, its eyes glowing under the lab lights. It was not calm. It was not relaxed. It was waiting, watching, judging every voice, every movement. Dr. Mason felt a chill as he watched the creature's body tighten, like a small storm preparing to explode. The aliens opened the cage. The creature didn't move at first. It only breathed slowly, its chest rising and falling. The aliens stepped closer, one holding a metal stick to examine its fur. Another wrote notes on a glowing blue pad. They were relaxed, smiling, confident. Their scanners always predicted danger, and if the scanner saw nothing, they saw nothing. But the honey badger saw everything. The first sign came when the lights flickered for half a second. The aliens didn't care, but the honey badger shifted its feet. Its claws scraped the metal table softly. Dr. Mason stepped back. He could feel the air change. He had seen videos before, heard stories. Honey badgers had survived lions, cobras, bullets, traps. If anything deserved fear, it was this. One alien leaned closer and poked the honey badger's side with the stick. "See, it is peaceful, not aggressive." The honey badger didn't blink. Then, without warning, the creature exploded into movement. Its roar was so loud the nearest scientist fell to the ground. The honey badger leapt forward, teeth flashing like blades. It bit down on the metal stick and snapped it in half. The aliens jumped back, screaming. Dr. Mason froze in shock. Everything happened too fast. One moment the room was calm, the next it was pure chaos. The honey badger attacked the nearest panel, smashing the buttons and ripping off wires. Sparks burst everywhere. An alarm started screaming through the lab. Red lights flashed across the ceiling. More aliens rushed in from the hall, confused and terrified. None of them expected such violence. Their scanners had never been wrong. The honey badger tore across the table, knocking over tools and breaking every object in its path. It jumped off the metal surface, landed on the floor, and ran straight toward a cluster of aliens. They scattered like children. One slipped and fell. Another tried to hide behind a machine. The creature didn't stop. It was a storm with claws. Dr. Mason shouted, "Close the doors, seal the room, don't let it get out." But the honey badger was faster. It slammed into a glass window with full force. Cracks spread like spiderwebs. The aliens gasped. "Impossible, that glass is reinforced." The honey badger slammed again. The glass shattered. Alien workers screamed and fell back as the creature jumped into the hallway. The chaos spread instantly. Machines crashed to the floor. Screens sparked. Alarms echoed through every corridor. An alien commander shouted orders, but no one listened. Everyone ran. The honey badger sprinted forward, claws clicking on the smooth floor. It attacked a security drone, ripping out its wires. It charged at a second drone and tore the metal apart like paper. The aliens could not understand. Their scanners had seen no threat. Their perfect technology had failed them completely. Dr. Mason ran after them, trying to help. "This is what I warned you about. You can't contain that thing. You need stronger barriers." But the aliens were too panicked to hear him. They had never faced something so small yet so unstoppable. The honey badger climbed onto a console and bit through a glowing power cable. Sparks flew everywhere. The entire lab flickered as systems failed one by one. The walls trembled as explosions echoed from distant rooms. In just a few minutes, the lab no longer felt safe, clean, or controlled. It felt like a battlefield. The honey badger stood in the center of the hallway, breathing heavily, fur raised, eyes burning with wild fury. Around it, aliens stepped back slowly, terrified. They finally understood something important, something they should have known from the moment they captured the creature. Earth was not a weak planet, and this animal was not harmless. The hallway lights kept flashing red as the emergency sirens rang through the entire Sector 9 facility. The alien lab workers ran in every direction, shouting orders that no one listened to. Fear moved faster than their voices. The honey badger stood in the middle of the broken corridor, its claws wet with leaking fluids from destroyed machines, its eyes wild with fury. It looked small, but the power inside it felt larger than the whole lab. Doctor. Mason kept his distance, breathing hard as he followed the aliens who were trying to regain control. He shouted again, hoping someone would hear him. Don't trap it in small spaces. It gets more angry. You need bigger barriers. But the aliens were panicking. One of them pushed a button on the wall, activating an energy barrier behind the creature. A blue wall of light crackled into place, blocking the hallway. We have it trapped. The alien worker yelled, feeling hopeful. The honey badger turned slowly toward the glowing barrier. It stared at it with a blank face, then lifted one paw and touched the energy field. A loud crack sizzled through the air. Sparks jumped across its fur. Instead of stopping, the creature roared and charged straight through the barrier like it wasn't even there. The energy grid exploded behind it, sending pieces of metal everywhere. Several aliens fell back, stunned. Impossible, nothing can pass through that. Dr. Mason covered his head as debris rained down. You don't understand. It doesn't stop. It doesn't get scared. It doesn't get tired like other animals. The honey badger sprinted down the hall, shoving aside fallen cables and broken glass. Two alien guards ran forward with long stun rods, shouting warnings. They swung their rods, but the creature dodged with speed they didn't expect. It jumped onto the first guard's arm, bit through his rod, and sent sparks flying. The guard screamed and dropped to his knees. The second guard tried to step back, but the honey badger jumped off the first guard and slammed into his chest. The guard fell, gasping as the creature tore across his armor, ripping pieces off with its claws. Dr. Mason grabbed the sleeve of the nearest alien worker. Call off the guards, they're making it worse. But the alien was shaking too much to speak. Another team of researchers appeared at the far end of the hallway. They were carrying a device shaped like a giant ring, glowing blue at its center. We will contain it with the quantum loop. One alien shouted. It freezes anything inside. Dr. Mason's eyes widened in fear. No, don't use that, it's too dangerous. The aliens ignored him. They pressed a button and the ring activated, shooting out a swirling blue field that wrapped around the honey badger like a bubble. The creature froze inside it, its body mid-snarl, claws raised. Everything looked calm for a second. The alien sighed in relief. Then the bubble began to shake. The honey badger's frozen paw twitched. A crack appeared in the blue energy sphere. The aliens gasped as the creature slowly turned its head inside the loop, fighting something that was supposed to stop all motion. The quantum loop brightened, trying to hold it in place. But the honey badger dug its claws into the energy field and tore it apart. A blast of blue light burst outward, knocking every alien worker to the ground. Dr. Mason shielded his face as heat washed over him. When he looked again, the honey badger stood free, angrier than before, smoke rising from its fur. The honey badger jumped onto the wall and started ripping out wires with its teeth. It tore into a control panel and pulled out glowing tubes. The whole lab shook as the power grid overloaded again. Inside a monitoring room nearby, alien supervisors watched the chaos through a cracked screen. One pointed at the creature in disbelief. How can something so small do so much damage? Another alien shook his head. Our scanners marked it harmless, a low-level Earth species. This must be an error. A third alien stared at Dr. Mason on the screen. The human knew, he warned us. Dr. Mason kept backing away as the creature tore through another console. Someone locked the security doors? He yelled. Not around the creature, around whole sections. You have to compartmentalize the lab. An alien slammed his hand on a panel. Heavy doors began dropping across the hallways, sealing off entire areas. Metal walls slid down with loud clanks, giving the lab a feeling of a war bunker. The honey badger stared at the nearest door as it lowered toward the floor. It sprinted across the hall and slid under it just before it closed, still at full speed. The aliens shouted in terror. That section is full of high-voltage equipment. One cried. If it breaks those, another whispered, the entire lab could overload. Dr. Mason ran after the creature, but he wasn't fast enough. Sparks lit up the sealed room behind the metal door as the honey badger attacked everything inside. Loud bangs shook the ceiling. Machines exploded one after another. Smoke spilled under the door. Small tremors rolled across the floor as lights flickered across the entire lab. The aliens huddled together near the wall, eyes wide with fear. This animal is not normal. No animal should do this. Doctor, Mason wiped sweat from his forehead. It's normal on Earth, he said quietly. This is just what it does when it gets angry. The metal door in front of them shook violently as something slammed against it from inside. The honey badger was trying to break out. The door dented inward. Another slam made the lights flicker. The aliens backed away. Some tripped over fallen tools. Others held their hands over their mouths, unable to breathe normally from panic. No one spoke. No one dared to. The honey badger slammed again. A huge dent formed in the center of the door. The aliens stared at it, horrified. Dr. Mason whispered, "Everyone get behind me. When that door opens, it's going to come out even angrier than before." Another crash hit the door so hard dust fell from the ceiling. The honey badger was not done, and the lab was only beginning to understand what kind of war they had accidentally started. The metal door shook again as the honey badger slammed into it from the other side. Cracks spread across the reinforced surface, and each blow sent a deep echo through the entire Section 9 corridor. The aliens huddled together, trembling, as the dent in the door grew wider. Dr. Mason stood farther back, his breathing uneven as he prepared for whatever came next. He knew the creature would not stay inside much longer. It never stayed trapped anywhere. Silence fell suddenly. The banging stopped. The corridor lights flickered once, then steadied. The aliens stared at the dented door, waiting for the next impact, but nothing happened. No noise, no scratching, no roaring, only a strange, heavy quiet. One alien whispered, "Has it stopped?" Another shook his head quickly. "No, it is thinking." Dr. Mason nodded. "It's finding another exit." Honey badgers don't attack the same spot forever. They change their plan when something doesn't work. His voice shook as he spoke. Even he didn't know what direction the creature would choose next. A faint scratching sound came from the ceiling. The aliens looked up. A sharp claw pierced the metal panel above them. Another claw followed. Then a growl. The aliens screamed and scattered as the honey badger clawed its way into the ventilation shaft, shredding through the metal like thin paper. The ceiling tiles fell as the creature disappeared inside the ventilation system. The long ducts rattled as it crawled rapidly through the narrow tunnels. The aliens stared upward, terrified to move. One alien ran to the wall panel and slammed his hand on it. "Seal the ventilation systems." The panel showed a flashing error message. "Vent control, offline, damage detected." Dr. Mason placed a hand on his forehead. "It already destroyed the systems in the other room. You can't shut the vents now." A deep metallic thud echoed above them as the honey badger moved quickly through the ducts. It was fast, too fast. Every few seconds a new bang shook the ceiling tiles. The creature was not running aimlessly. It was hunting. It knew there were more things to break, more walls to claw through, more things to attack. The aliens tried to track it on their screens, but the monitors were glitching. Static lines flickered across the displays. The honey badger had ripped out too many wires earlier. In a control room nearby, 3 alien technicians watched a map of the ventilation system. Red dots moved across the screen. "It is in the north duct," one said, "heading toward the energy storage center." A second alien shouted, "Stop it. If it damages the main batteries, the whole lab will go into blackout." Dr. Mason grabbed the alien's shoulder. "Then don't chase it, don't corner it. Every time you try to trap it, you make it worse." The aliens stared at him, shaking. "What do we do then? Let it wander freely?" Dr. Mason didn't answer. He didn't know the right solution. He knew what honey badgers did in the wild. Attack, escape, attack again. And this one was in a lab full of expensive wires, weapons, and fragile walls. Nothing about this creature or this environment matched. The lab suddenly shook from a new explosion. A deep boom echoed through the halls. Sparks shot from the overhead lights. The emergency sirens changed tone, now warning of overheating circuits. The alien supervisor checked a nearby screen. "It reached the storage center. The batteries are overloading." Dr. Mason ran to the broken window of the control room and looked down. Through the smoke below, he saw flashing blue sparks inside the energy chamber. The honey badger leaped between cables, biting into connectors, tearing at glowing coils. The entire room glowed like it was about to explode. 4 alien drones flew in, trying to surround it. They fired nets made of shimmering blue threads. One net hit the honey badger, wrapping around it for 2 seconds. Just 2. Then the creature spun violently, biting through the net and pulling it apart with insane strength. It attacked the first drone, ripping off its camera eye. The second drone exploded into sparks as the creature leaped onto it. The remaining 2 flew backward, trying to escape, but the creature jumped high enough to grab one of their arms and pull it from the air. Dr. Mason exhaled slowly. "You're only making it angrier," he whispered. The honey badger dropped onto the floor and vanished into another open vent. The drones lay scattered, broken, and silent. All across the lab, aliens ran between rooms, trying to prepare for the creature's next attack. Some placed barriers, some locked doors. Others simply hid behind consoles, covering their heads and shaking. The lab speakers crackled to life. The alien commander's voice echoed through the hallways. "All workers report to safe zones. The creature is moving toward the central corridor. Secure every room." But securing rooms didn't help. The honey badger didn't enter through doors. It entered through walls. The creature slammed through a thin metal wall panel, sending shards flying. Aliens screamed and ducked as it ran straight down the main hallway. It didn't stop. It crashed into a floating medical cart, tipping it over. It bit into a glowing blue medical scanner and tossed it aside. It scratched deep claw marks into the floor. Dr. Mason arrived behind the fleeing aliens, panting heavily. He watched the creature's path of destruction and knew things were getting worse. "It's more scared than angry now," he said. "Fear makes it even more aggressive." The alien commander finally appeared, armor glowing with bright red lines. He had 2 soldiers behind him carrying large shock staffs. The commander stepped forward bravely. "We will corner it with heavy units. It cannot escape this time." Dr. Mason shook his head with frustration. "No. You need a different plan. You can't trap it like that. It will break through." But the commander raised a hand. "Humans, stand back. We will handle this." The honey badger crawled out of a vent directly behind them. The aliens turned too late. The creature roared and lunged forward, slamming into the nearest soldier. The shock staff flew into the air. The soldier hit the ground hard. The commander swung his weapon, but the creature ducked and tore into the armor around his leg. Sparks burst from the suit. The second soldier attacked, but the honey badger grabbed the staff, twisted, and snapped it in half. The soldier stared at the broken weapon in disbelief. Before he could react, the creature leapt onto his chest, knocking him flat. The commander stumbled backward, staring at the small creature with wide, horrified eyes. How can a tiny animal fight like this? "Doctor," Mason looked at him sadly, "welcome to Earth." The honey badger left the soldiers behind and sprinted deeper into the lab. Now everyone realized the truth. They weren't hunting it. It was hunting them. The lab had never felt this cold before. Every hallway looked darker, even with the emergency red lights flashing. Smoke drifted slowly through the air from destroyed machines, and the walls trembled from distant impacts. Aliens moved quietly now, whispering to each other, afraid to speak loudly. No one dared to run anymore. Running made noise. Noise brought the creature. The honey badger roamed freely between sections now, tearing through whatever blocked its path. Every time an alien heard claws scraping metal, they froze. Every crash made them jump. The entire lab, once full of confidence, had fallen into complete fear. The alien commander limped toward the central control room, holding his damaged armor. Dr. Mason walked beside him, trying to keep his breathing steady. The commander looked frustrated, embarrassed, and in shock. He had never lost control of a situation before. His team had never been pushed aside by something so small. The commander said quietly, "Our scanners rated it harmless. This cannot be real." Dr. Mason sighed. "Your scanners can't read everything. They read size, shape, energy levels, but they don't read attitude." The commander turned to him, confused. "Attitude." Dr. Mason nodded. "Honey badgers don't care about danger. They attack anything. They don't fear death. And when you place one in a stressful place like this, it becomes even stronger." A distant metallic crash echoed through the corridors. The commander stopped walking. "It is destroying the West Wing." Dr. Mason listened. More bangs followed. The sound of machinery falling, the high-pitched whine of a power line snapping. "It's not just destroying things," he said softly. "It's finding weak spots. It wants a way out." The commander shook his head quickly. No, it is not trying to escape. It keeps coming deeper into the lab. He stared at the map on his wrist device. It is heading toward the core control room. Dr. Mason frowned. Why would it go there? The commander whispered, that is where our strongest machines are and where the central power is. Doctor, Mason felt his stomach tighten. You're telling me it's going straight for the heart of the lab. The honey badger crawled through the vents above them again, sending dust raining down from the ceiling. The commander pulled his soldiers close. Prepare defensive formation. We must stop it before it reaches the core. But the soldiers looked terrified. They held their shock weapons weakly, hands shaking. One of them whispered, it cannot be stopped. It breaks everything we use against it. The commander forced his voice to be strong. We are warriors of the Vora Alliance. We do not run from small animals. A loud crash cut through his speech as the honey badger smashed out of a vent behind them. The soldiers screamed and broke formation. The creature charged. They scattered, tripping over their own feet. Dr. Mason dove behind a console. The commander raised his weapon, but the honey badger pounced onto him again, knocking him back. He hit the ground hard, gritting his teeth as the creature clawed at his armor. Sparks burst from the plates. He managed to push it off with a kick, sending it sliding across the floor. But instead of running away, it stood up again, growling louder. The commander crawled backward. His bravery from earlier had vanished. How is it still strong? We shocked it, froze it, trapped it. Doctor, Mason answered from behind the console. Honey badgers don't quit. They fight until they win. The creature sprinted down the hall before anyone could stop it. It wasn't running in fear. It was running with purpose. The commander got back to his feet with Dr. Mason's help. It is going to the core control. If it destroys the stabilizer, our whole facility may go dark. Dr. Mason looked at him. Then you need a new plan. The commander's eyes narrowed. What do you suggest? Dr. Mason hesitated. Give it space, don't attack it, let it calm down. The commander stared at him like he had spoken nonsense. Calm, that thing. I've seen worse, Doctor. Mason replied. If you corner it, you die. If you chase it, you die. If you leave it alone, it might slow down. That is a terrible plan, the commander said. It's the only plan, Dr. Mason answered. Another explosion shook the floor. The honey badger had reached the stabilizer room. The commander grabbed his weapon again. No, we fight. This lab cannot fall. Dr. Mason followed him. If you attack it inside the stabilizer room, everything will fall. They ran together toward the core. Inside the stabilizer room, the honey badger tore into wires as thick as its body. Sparks sprayed the room like fireworks. The humming of power coils filled the air. The creature's fur stood on end from static electricity. 3 alien engineers hid behind a console, shaking. They whispered into a communicator, Commander, it is here. It is tearing everything. We cannot stop it. The honey badger leapt onto the control panel and ripped out a glowing cylinder the size of a water bottle. The lights in the whole lab flickered. The floor vibrated. The stabilizer ring began to glow dangerously bright. Doctor. Mason and the commander ran in just as the creature bit through another cable. The commander raised his weapon, aiming at the creature. Dr. Mason grabbed his arm. If you shoot, it'll explode. The commander lowered the weapon slowly, his breathing heavy. Then what do we do? The honey badger turned toward them slowly, eyes glowing from the reflection of the stabilizer lights. Its fur crackled with electricity. The stabilizer room grew hotter every minute. The glowing ring in the center pulsed like a giant heart beating too fast, sending waves of light across the walls. Loose cables sparked on the floor. Broken screens flickered weakly, showing warning messages that no one bothered reading anymore. The whole lab was one mistake away from total shutdown. The honey badger moved behind the giant stabilizer coils, scraping metal with its claws. Every scratch echoed through the room. The aliens crouched behind control panels, holding their breath, afraid even the smallest sound would bring the creature charging toward them. Doctor. Mason watched the shadows, trying to understand the creature's pattern. The commander stood beside him, gripping his broken weapon tightly. The commander whispered, We cannot allow it to damage the stabilizer core. If the core breaks, the energy will overload. It will destroy half the facility. Dr. Mason nodded. I know, but you can't attack it directly. If you hit one wrong cable, it will also explode. The commander took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. Then we need a distraction, something it will chase, something strong enough to lead it away. Dr. Mason looked around the room. Nothing here could be moved easily. The machines were too heavy, the equipment was too fragile. The cables were too dangerous. But then he looked down at a fallen drone on the floor. The honey badger had torn off most of its parts, but the base still had a small battery. "If we can reactivate that," Dr. Mason said, pointing at the drone, "we might be able to lure the creature with sound." The commander stared at the broken machine. "You think sound will distract it?" Dr. Mason nodded. "Honey badgers respond to noise. If it comes from somewhere else, especially something moving, it might follow." The commander hesitated. "It is dangerous. If the drone fails, it may chase us instead." Dr. Mason looked him straight in the eyes. "It's already chasing us. This is better than nothing." The commander gave an order to 2 engineers hiding behind the console. They crawled forward, shaking, and grabbed the drone's broken battery. They rewired it quickly with trembling hands. The small machine sputtered, whirred, and finally made a weak buzzing sound. It lifted a few inches off the floor, its lights blinking. The honey badger stopped moving. Everyone froze. The buzzing echoed through the room. The honey badger turned slowly, eyes narrowing. It slipped out from behind the stabilizer coils, its fur glowing with electricity. The creature sniffed the air, growled, and stared directly at the drone. Dr. Mason whispered, "Keep it low. Move it slowly." The drone drifted across the room, buzzing. The honey badger stepped forward, then picked up speed. It ran after the drone, chasing it across the floor. The engineers guided it through the doorway, steering it into the next hallway. The honey badger followed instantly. "Close the door," Dr. Mason shouted. The commander hit the panel. The heavy door slid shut with a loud thud. Everyone held their breath. The honey badger slammed against the door on the other side. The metal boomed under the impact. Another slam followed, a third. The door shook violently, but it held, at least for now. The commander exhaled slowly. It worked, but only for a moment. Dr. Mason leaned against a shattered console. He felt exhausted. "We bought some time, use it well." The commander looked at the glowing stabilizer ring. The heat coming from it was intense. "We need to shut down the core manually before that creature reaches this room again." He pointed at a panel halfway up a tall metal tower. "The override switch is there, but the ladder is damaged." Dr. Mason glanced at the unstable metal. The ladder was bent, partially broken. Several rungs hung loose. "I can climb it," he said quietly, "but if it breaks while I'm up there." The commander cut him off. "Then we all die, so climb carefully." Dr. Mason swallowed hard and stepped toward the ladder. The honey badger's distant roars echoed from the hallway. The drone was failing. He climbed quickly, gripping the metal tightly. The rungs wobbled. Sparks flew from the machinery below. Sweat dripped down his forehead. Halfway up, one of the rungs snapped, and he nearly lost his balance. The aliens shouted below, but Dr. Mason caught himself and kept climbing. He reached the panel and pulled off its cover. The override switch glowed red. He pulled it. Nothing happened. Dr. Mason stared at the switch in confusion. "It's stuck. It's not responding." The commander shouted from below, "Switch to manual override. Use the lever inside the panel." "Doctor." Mason reached into the panel and found the lever. It was tight, rusted from age. He pulled with all his strength. It didn't move. He gritted his teeth and pulled harder. His arms strained. His fingers burned. A loud boom shook the room as the honey badger slammed against the hallway door again. Dr. Mason pulled harder. The lever finally snapped down with a heavy click. The stabilizer ring dimmed. The hum softened. For the first time since the chaos began, the lab felt slightly calmer. The commander sighed with relief. "You did it." But the celebration lasted only 2 seconds. The hallway door buckled inward. The honey badger broke through, roaring as it charged into the stabilizer room. Dr. Mason froze on the ladder. The commander lifted his damaged weapon, ready to defend. The engineers hid behind a console. Everyone expected the creature to go straight for the stabilizer again, but it didn't. It ran at the commander. He raised his arms, but the creature leaped and slammed him to the ground. His armor cracked loudly. "Doctor." Mason climbed down as fast as he could. He grabbed a loose piece of metal pipe and swung it. The honey badger turned instantly, its eyes locking onto him. He stepped back, heart pounding. "Easy, easy." The creature growled, low and dangerous. The commander struggled to his feet. "Human, run." But Dr. Mason didn't run. He stood between the creature and the commander. The honey badger stepped closer. The commander whispered, terrified, "What are you doing?" Dr. Mason whispered back, "Trying to keep you alive." The honey badger's eyes glowed as it prepared to charge, and the final battle was about to begin. The honey badger stared at Dr. Mason with burning eyes, its body low and tense. The stabilizer room was silent now except for the crackle of broken wires and the faint hum of cooling machinery. The creature's claws scraped the floor slowly as it took one cautious step forward. Dr. Mason held the metal pipe loosely, his hands shaking. He didn't want to fight. He knew fighting only made the creature more violent. He took a slow breath and lowered the pipe to the floor. The honey badger growled louder, confused by the lack of aggression. Behind Dr. Mason, the commander struggled to get up, pain shooting through his cracked armor. He whispered, "Human, move. It will kill you." Dr. Mason shook his head slightly. "If I move, it will chase. If I stand still, maybe it will calm." The commander stared at him in disbelief. "You cannot calm that thing." Dr. Mason didn't look back. "Sometimes you can." The honey badger stopped moving for a moment. Its ears twitched. Its eyes scanned the room as if measuring every angle, every escape path, every threat. It took a step closer, sniffing the air around Dr. Mason. The human stayed still, even though his heart felt like it would burst out of his chest. One wrong move, one loud breath, one nervous flinch could turn this into death. The creature's nose touched Dr. Mason's boot. The entire room held its breath. Even the commander didn't dare whisper. The honey badger sniffed again, moving slowly up the human's leg. Dr. Mason closed his eyes and tried to relax his muscles. Seconds felt like hours. Then suddenly the creature pulled back its head and let out a harsh snort. It didn't attack. It didn't charge. It walked past him. The commander gasped quietly. Dr. Mason opened his eyes in shock as the honey badger moved across the room, ignoring everyone. Its anger seemed to fade a little. Its movements softened. The creature found a broken pipe on the ground, pushed it with its paw, and then sat beside it, breathing slowly. Dr. Mason whispered, "It's tired." The commander raised an eyebrow. "Tired." It destroyed half the lab. Dr. Mason nodded. Honey badgers don't attack forever. They explode with energy, then they rest. It's not calm, just exhausted. The commander took a small step forward, wincing in pain. "So what do we do now? If we leave it, it will wake up and attack again." Dr. Mason thought for a moment. "We sedate it, but gently, without hurting it." One of the engineers peeked out from behind a broken console and nervously lifted a small injector gun. "We have a mild tranquilizer made for larger animals. Maybe it could work." The commander nodded. "Try it." Dr. Mason held out his hand. "Let me do it. If one of you gets close, it will think you're attacking." No one argued. The humans had been right every step of the way. Dr. Mason took the injector, walked slowly toward the honey badger, and knelt beside it. The creature opened one eye lazily, but didn't growl. It breathed heavily, its energy almost gone. Dr. Mason whispered, "Easy now, you've been through a lot." He slipped the injector gently into its thick fur and pressed the trigger. The honey badger twitched but didn't fight. Its breathing slowed. Its eyes closed gradually. A few seconds later, the creature lay fully asleep. The room let out a collective breath of relief. Aliens collapsed to the floor, shaking from the stress. The commander leaned against a wall and stared at the unconscious creature. This small thing brought our entire lab to its knees. Dr. Mason looked at the creature with mixed emotions. On Earth, honey badgers face dangers every day. Lions, cobras, traps, they survive everything. They're symbols of fearlessness. You captured one and put it in a stressful place. This was always going to happen. The commander lowered his head. "Our scanners misread it." "Your scanners can't read spirit," Dr. Mason said. "Can't measure stubbornness, can't measure how hard something fights to survive." The aliens gathered around him. One of them whispered, "We underestimated Earth terribly." Hours later, the lab was in repair mode. Fire suppression drones floated slowly through the halls, spreading foam on sparks. Engineers patched walls and replaced cracked panels. The stabilizer room was cooled down and stabilized. The honey badger was placed inside a large containment pod with thick walls, reinforced locks, and sturdy barriers. But this time, the aliens did not mock it. They stepped back respectfully, treating it like a dangerous force of nature. The commander called for an emergency meeting in the central chamber. Dozens of aliens gathered, some limping, some covered in dust, all visibly shaken. Dr. Mason stood beside them, representing the human side of the disaster. The commander addressed everyone. "Our scanners reported no threat, but our experience today proves something different. Earth species must not be judged by size or energy levels. They must be judged by their behavior, their resilience, and their unpredictability." He pointed at the sleeping honey badger inside the containment pod. "This creature fought against our strongest machines, broke our barriers, outsmarted our traps, damaged our core systems, and survived things no other species could have. An alien scientist stepped forward nervously. "What changes do you propose, Commander?" The commander